Well, let's talk Kentucky Derby. Um, really exciting race this year. We've got at least three horses who can be potential superstars. We have Justify, who comes in with a bandwagon that has no room for anybody else to jump on it. A lot of hype. I'm normally a don't believe the hype kind of person. Um, but the horse looks good. Um, we have Magnum Moon, who's won all his starts, three different racetracks, I believe. Came home fast last time, even though he was bearing out. Went a little slow early, so he probably should have come home fast, but still did. Hadn't lost yet. And then you've got Mendelssohn coming in off a monstrous win in the UAE Derby, and he's won on turf, synthetic, and now dirt. And if he wins the Kentucky Derby, then later in the year wins the English Derby or the Irish, Derby or something like that. I mean, come back for another run at the Breeders' Cup late in the year. You never know. I mean, he's a potential superstar as well. So you got three horses that are potential superstars, two of them undefeated. And you got a slew of other contenders in a very intriguing Kentucky Derby. I wrote a preview on the Derby a couple of weeks ago. It's up on the site, simply called Derby Preview. Although it was a couple of weeks out, I had already done a lot of the preliminary work. Obviously, they hadn't drawn the race yet, and that's a big factor to me, especially in the Derby. And we are looking at some possible rain, which makes a already difficult situation even more difficult. But again, we got to play the cards we're dealt, and that's not going to keep any of us away, so we kind of got to deal with it. Churchill Downs probably takes water, dirt track over there, better than any track in the country. They handle it great. So, that's a little bit of a positive. We'll deal with it. What could I say? The Derby is a great race to bet. A lot of people like to bet long shots. I'm not against that. I love to bet long shots. I made a very nice bet on Animal Kingdom the year that he won. I bet I'll have another the year that he won. Didn't bet California Chrome, bet all, but I've had some success in the last 10 years, 15 years. I've been lucky and fortunate in the Derby. I had some rough beats like everybody else, but for the most part, it's been a race that I've been somewhat successful in. That said, my philosophy on the Derby is, whoever you bet, the favorites usually 5-2, 3-1, 4-5-1. There's value to be had between the enormous pool, all the different exotics, all the different, like I said, holiday money, on these kind of days in the pool. There's value to be had. You've got to find it or create it, but you don't have to bet a big price horse to get value. If you like the favorite, probably going to be Justify. That's not where I'm landing, but if you like him, you can't, in my opinion, say, hey, well, I like him, but I'm going to bet him because he's got a bigger price. There's no value in a losing wager. So if you like a horse, especially in the Derby, you can bet him and find a way to get value out of him. I looked at the race, and something that I try and do every year is try and find the horses I think are going to peak, and are really coming to their top effort. And then I'll look at horses who might already be there, but don't look like they're going to regress, and look like they fit, and the distance is going to be kind to them. And those are the ones that at the end of the day I label my pretenders and try and sort through them based on how I think the race is going to play out. This year, I think I was fortunate from my perspective because I didn't see a lot of horses that I thought were going to peak come Saturday. I only saw 3 horses that I was relatively comfortable were going to peak. I saw a couple of horses who belong, and a couple of question marks. And the way I'm attacking it with a single in the Oaks and being able to spread in the other 2 legs of the Oaks, Woodford Derby pick 3, and being able to kind of play around in the pick 4s and the pick 5s, and a couple of races where I may not be that deep. I think that I could probably use them all on one ticket, and then go back at the 2 or 3 I like the most on the second ticket, and then go back at the one that I like the best on the third ticket, and put myself in a position to really make a nice score without having to pick one horse per se. You don't have to do that if you're betting multi-race wages, and that's an advantage. I'm a big guy for the singles, but it doesn't have to be in the Derby. You don't get paid anymore if your singles in the Derby or another leg. So, I don't do the ABC method, but I do go back at horses. So in other words, if I use 5 horses in the Kentucky Derby and my pick 4, 5, or 6, but I like one better than the others, I may take them all on one ticket and then go back and take the one I like the best on an additional ticket. That's not how the ABC method works. I don't ever want to have all the horses on different tickets. Just not how I do it. Again, to each their own. In the Derby, the 3 horses that I think are going to peak on Saturday are Good Magic, Justify, and Mendelssohn. And the interesting thing about Mendelssohn is that as long as I've been doing the sheets, and I go back a long way with Ragozin, and I've used Thorograph, which I use now for a long time, I don't ever remember, and I've got a pretty good memory for these kind of things, I don't ever remember a horse that I could sit here and say, this horse can bounce and still win the race. And Mendelssohn's UAE Derby is exactly that kind of race. He can regress off that race and still win. His number was that much superior to anybody else's on the Thorograph. Now, the interesting thing about Mendelssohn, in my opinion, and he is my top choice in the Derby and will be the horse that I go back at, and that's Rain or Shine. The interesting thing to me is that everybody talks about Mendelssohn as if he's a turf horse running on the dirt, and he's a grass horse, and they quote tried him on a dirt in Dubai. I disagree with that, and I think everybody's missing the boat here. I think Mendelssohn is a dirt horse who happened to be running on grass because he's out of the Aidan O'Brien bond, and that's what they run on. But he's a half to Behold. He's a half to Into Mischief, and he's a runner. I think the last race was really a public workout. I don't even look at it as a race. Ryan Moore sent him to the lead, and he ran tremendous. He ran phenomenal. No knock on him in any way, shape, or form. He won, geared down. He went 1 mile and 3/16, which is further than anybody in this race has gone to date. The last horse, and the only horse I'm aware of off the top of my head that went 1 mile and 3/16 prior to the 1.25 mile of the Derby was Canonero II. Interestingly, Canonero II and Bold Forbes are the only 2 Derby winners that prepped outside the country, like Mendelssohn did. These are some things that I just know because I've been in the game so long that a lot of people are not talking about, and maybe don't come up with all these stats that I think are overrated anyway, but it is an interesting note. So yes, indeed, Mendelssohn is my top choice. I think that his draw out of the 14 hole, I believe, is no problem at all. I don't think he needs to go to the lead. I think he can sit anywhere that Ryan Moore wants him to sit, and I expect him to sit. I don't think he's the speed of the race at all, but I think he's going to run a very, very big race. I don't think he's going to regress. I know I said that he can regress and win. I think he's actually going to go forward because he's going back on Lasix. He won the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf on Lasix, and it was after that race that O'Brien said this was probably his best shot to win the Derby. I agree with him. I think they knew they had a dirt horse. Coolmore paid $3 million for him. I don't think he runs back into Preakness, as I've said, if he wins the Derby. I think he'll point for the English Derby and become a shuttle back and forth to the National Sire. But I'm looking for a very big race from him. Ryan Moore's a patient rider. I think he'll wait, and then kick. And I think he'll have some kick down the lane. I know O'Brien doesn't have the same kind of stats on the dirt as he does on the turf. Guy can train, doesn't matter to me where the horses are running. I think this horse is a runner, and he's going to be my top choice. The other ones that I mentioned, we will talk about in the next video, but you know, for now, Mendelssohn is my top choice in the Derby, 100%. I'm looking for a very big race out of him, and like I said, he can regress or tail a little bit and still win. And I don't ever remember seeing that on a Derby contender. But we'll be back in a minute with the rest of the field and how I'm going to play it, and that's that for now.